Bill, anything to add on that side? I know you were maybe a little bit, I don't want to say hesitant, but you weren't really sure that the automation aspect was working as well as you would like right now.
No, and we generally utilize either what Microsoft has to offer or whatever is built into any platforms that we have already. Haven't investigated in any standalone solution.
I appreciate it very much. So yeah, just another area of growth for the RPA vendors. All right, one other topic that we wanted to bring up today, I don't see any other submitted questions, but we did talk about how, this convergence is happening. There is a commoditization around SSO and MFA, and we did talk a little bit about biometrics, the next real phase in this. So I thought it might be worth discussing a little bit around that. Where do you guys see that going? I know RSA is more known for like tags and keys, but they were actually, pretty high on the list outside of the Okta Cyber SailPoint. They were the next one that was brought up. So maybe that's sort of a segue that leads us to that spot. Graham, you brought up the topic in our, previous discussion, so maybe I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, well, it's related to this sector, very strongly, so-called passwordless authentication or even ID-less authentication. I've been a huge advocate of biometrics for a very long time. They've never really been able to catch on because of probably social barriers more than technical ones. But what I've seen in practice is so many people, they unlock these things with their face and their fingerprint, and fingerprint scanners are ubiquitous. Cameras have amazing resolutions and they can take pictures of retina and iris and palm prints and fingerprints. I do see the passwordless authentication growing rapidly now because of the social adoption. And then the technology, I think, has gotten mature enough with some of these newer protocols for authentication, where pretty much any device with a camera can be a biometric reader now. And guess what? Every device has a camera. So I think that part of the acquisition by Okta of Auth0's kind of passwordless capabilities is also going to enhance their value proposition and help them on that the user experience side of identity and access management.
Really do appreciate it. And Graham, like when you look out, is this something that's still seems science fiction to you in your community, or things that you think will be applicable in the next year or two?
I think it's happening already.
Okay.
So I think it's definitely in the next year or two. And you're looking at companies, a couple I'm aware of, just throw out some names. Hyper is one, Transmit Security is another that have gotten some funding recently that are growing in this space. Obviously you have Auth0, and a lot of other platforms are adding the capability of the passwordless kind of biometrics as well. So I think this is something that's imminent.
Thank you, Graham. Again, Andrew, I saw you nodding your head. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And
I'm the pessimist here in the sense, and I look at it from the perspective of when it doesn't work or it's not functioning and you need to reset yourself. What are you going to use to reset yourself? You can't reset yourself with your face or your fingerprint because they don't change. So when the technology fails, you'll need a mechanism to reset, right? And then and maybe that's where you still have a password on file or something you could associate with your biometric, so that you can go in, reset yourself, implement a new biometric, whether it's a fingerprint. And even though your face hasn't changed and your fingerprint hasn't changed, you're still resetting it back to something, right? And so that's the pessimist in me. I'm not debating it's not the future. I just think I think it needs more than a couple of years. But it's happening to talk, right? But that's my perspective. And I know you're going to call me the pessimist, but it is what it is. I am what I am.
No, these things actually have to be implemented and they actually have to be supported as well. So just because the technology is there doesn't mean that the adoption is going to follow that quickly.
Yeah, I have another point of view here, and that's privacy. I've got people in EU countries with a lot of concerns about personal data being stored, and biometrics just makes them, they start to vibrate, to be honest. It's just not a place I'm willing to go until it is far more ubiquitous and common for it to be baked into solutions and accepted around the world.
Yeah, we've got the challenge of anybody that has any type of PPE. Biometrics are a challenge. So everyone that used Face ID throughout the pandemic, you're very familiar with the challenges of PPE and those types of things. So that's one of our.
does get better if you happen to have an iWatch, because you can unlock your device with your watch if you have a mask on. I just thought I'd throw that in, Eric. That's all.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to real quickly just take a moment because I don't think, Todd, you had the ability to answer that question. I didn't remember exactly, it got closed, but did you have the opportunity to answer that submitted question? It had something to do with a particular vendor with a ServiceNow integration?
Yeah, they're talking about the ServiceNow platform. I'm sorry, let me copy and paste back in the chat.
Well, that's all right. I just want to make sure that whoever submitted that got their question answered while we have
One of
some
those
time.
users that clicks all the buttons, so that was my bad.
There it is, clear sky. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So the single pane, for us, it depends on where that single pane is. So some of the vendors that do the single pane can operate like a vacuum cleaner, where they want everything to come to their single pane of glass. We much more prefer vendors that are interoperable so that we can decide where that single pane of glass is. So I'm not a huge fan of single pane of glass for the sole purpose of being a single pane of glass, but we do like consolidating as much as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, from what I've seen from the end users that I interview, Cisco has SecureX. So if you're in the Cisco environment already, they are able to kind of do that. And also Palo Alto, if you're choosing to go down the Palo Alto path, they have Panorama. But I've never seen someone that can take disparate best of breed from all over the place and still hand you a single pane of glass. It still seems something that's very far away. Anything to add or thoughts on that? I know we all want to get to a single pane, but it just doesn't seem achievable in the near term.
Other than nodding, I have nothing further to add, Eric.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. One last quick question. The survey that we did recently also spoke about zero trust. And this is sort of another, bandied about term. People love to use it. It's a lot of marketing. It's helping sell technology, but zero trust is not an actual technology, is not a vendor. It's more of a philosophy. And when we ask about zero trust, you and your peers are basically saying it could replace identity and privilege access, 20% strongly, 30% somewhat. So you've got about 50% of the people that say, I think it could. But then you've got also 50% of the people saying no. So we're seeing a very split, divided community. When you guys view the promise of zero trust versus what it is today, how do you balance that? How are you implementing zero trust in your own enterprises? Graham, you want to start there?
Sure. So, for me, this is specific about called the ZTNA technology that's coming out there. It's doing a lot of VPN replacements. I sort of came to this where I realized that what it does in terms of proxying access, forcing strong authentication, monitoring, and logging, it did kind of 90% of what I expect a PAM tool to do. And so I had this little epiphany. I said, oh, we're doing privilege access management for every account now, for all access. And when you're talking about a zero trust approach, that's kind of the point. You don't trust anything. Why are we treating a privileged account different than a standard user account? That standard user can go in and alter your general ledger or change someone's pay rate in HR or cut a wire transfer check. So I'll say I'm on the strongly agree side, where I think the shift is going to be essentially doing what we do for PAM for everything. And I see the best architectural opportunity is to grow out of some of these zero trust network access solutions to add the residual PAM capabilities.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Todd, I see you agreeing as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything Graham said. I mean, to us, it's just really moving the fence or putting another fence outside the existing fence. So as a philosophy, we certainly support it.
Need a lot of fences, don't you?
You do, yeah.
Bill, any thoughts for you on adopting a ZTNA and how far away we might be?
I think possibly the division in the survey responses has a little bit to do with a definition. What is zero trust? It's different depending on what vendor or what expert you're talking to still. When I look at it, I find that our philosophy has led us to implement probably 3/4 of what is embodied in zero trust principles already, which makes the idea of investing in a specific zero trust solution on top of the fact that we've got CyberArk for privileged access management somewhat formidable. So I'd rather see zero trust principles properly work their way into the upgrades of solutions that we have. I'd like to see Microsoft do better in this space, right? You know, we've still got an awful lot of stupidity in the basics of Microsoft with the ability to crack hashes that run around your network at the LAN level. Okay, let's fix that stuff and just make it harder and harder and harder for things to be broken, and it'll just get better over time that way.
Thank you, Bill. We just had one come up, and since it's on privileged access and you're a CyberArk, you know, user, I'm going to just ask this one to you. On replacing privileged access with the ZTNA, is it the same buyers/users?
That's hard to answer. Probably a lot of overlap.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say 100%.
I appreciate it very much. And Andrew, on this concept of zero trust, you're one who said earlier, I've already spent a lot of money on on CyberArk, on SailPoint, on Okta Auth0. Are you one that believes that, you know, because of the amount of money you've already spent supporting this, that there really is not an invitation from a new methodology like ZTNA?
No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all. And not that I'm not in support of that. I just need to align better what we've done and what that means to us, and you know what efficiencies or whatever that will give us. I mean, we clearly segregate our privileged accounts from our user accounts. You know, our privileged accounts don't have email, they don't have internet access. You know, I'm saying they're completely separate accounts. They're only available during the privileged access process. And that's what we're working on with CyberArk, and you know, better automation, better, you know, a little bit easier management around that rather than a homegrown tool. But I'm not saying ZTNA and that, you know, doubts or whatever. I just need to align that with where we are and where we're going to better understand what I'm going to do with it.
All right, thank you. Real quickly, as a jump ball for everyone, when we talk about ZTNA, are there any vendors out there that are doing better than others? Obviously, it's a lot of marketing hype. Every security vendor is going to say they're moving the puck towards zero trust. But are there any out there that you're seeing that is on your radar that we as researchers and potentially as investors should be aware of? Any names worth throwing out at all?
I mean, I'll say three that we strongly looked at were Zscaler for their ZPA, AppGate, which used to be Sixtera, and Access Security.
Excellent, thank you very much. Zscaler is still dominant in our spending trends data as well, and well deserved. They're doing an excellent job. But maybe they'll save that panel for another time. So gentlemen, with the amount of time we have left, I'm just going to go through and see if there's any closing thoughts. I always like to say, you know, what did we not ask? What should we be thinking about that didn't come up today? So I'm just going to go through the list and then say thank you for your time. Bill, I really enjoyed speaking with you today. Any final thoughts for the group?
Thank you. There was a part 2 to a question submitted in the chat about extending identity to other identity communities like customer and such, and I did provide an answer from my point of view.
Excellent, thank you. Todd, again, thank you so much for your time. I always enjoy speaking to you, sir. Any final thoughts for me and the group?
Just to follow up to the last question, we are Zscaler customers as well, and I totally agree with Graham's assertion that Zscaler fills that gap. We've been happy with their take on zero trust so far.
Excellent.